record. Thank you for coming, everybody. Let's start with a prayer. You can join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for this group of women who are gathered here tonight. Heavenly Parent, I know each one of us has been on our own journey that's led us to this point, and there's always some spark there for each of us, Heavenly Parent, and I pray tonight we can make a space for you to kindle that spark, strengthen that spark, Heavenly Parent, and help us to find the ways to respond to that calling inside our hearts from you, and to manifest it more substantially in this precious time that we have on earth with our true mother. We really pray that we can channel Mother's spirit here. We pray that we can make a space where Mother can be understood fully and completely by her daughters here. Heavenly Parent, I pray we can bring her great comfort, and that we can be the filial daughters that can respond wholeheartedly to our true mother's heart at this time. Yeah, so I just really pray for your presence and your wisdom and your inspiration in each of us as we navigate this precious time. And I offer all these things in the name of David and Kayleigh Moffat of Blessed Central Family, a Jew. So thank you for everyone who's here. And those of you who are showing your faces, extra thank you, but no pressure to everybody else, because I know what that's like. And some of you are putting babies to sleep, which I understand, of course, too. So it's been about a month since we had our first call like this. And since then, I think a handful of us were able to go to Las Vegas with Women's Federation and go through the Rebirth Workshop. And then some of us who are directly connected to Women's Fed are planning for some upcoming activities. But at the same time, Mother has kind of called on the whole movement to participate in a 40-day condition, which I want to get to in a little bit. But before we do that, Katerina, can I put you in charge of letting people in so I don't have to worry about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I've been doing it. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So have I. So I think we're both doing it. But now I don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, I have a few things prepared that I want to go through. Let me just pull them all up. So whenever I prepare something like this, and these days, whenever I prepare a talk, I'm always centering it on like True Mother's words, what's on Mother's heart. And so I spent maybe an hour today looking through the last few speeches that have been released on the Family Fed International website and also the Eyepiece TV. And I'm actually sorry and pretty disappointed to say that more is not being released, because I know that more is being said and more is being shared by Mother, but there is some hesitation to share some of that content. And what is shared is just bits and pieces of what Mother's saying. And so I think it's really important as we kind of look at those resources that we can read between the lines and really try to sense what's on Mother's heart. So the first one I want to show you, here it is the most recent speech that was shared publicly. And before I show it, I just want to remind us that one of the things that came out of this first call was the recognition that Mother's energy, Mother's spirit, Mother's way of speaking has really changed. The tone has really changed over the last 6 months. And, in the past, it's always been strong, right? And pushing us and challenging us. But I think we all felt by the end of the call that, Mother is really serious about this time. And if I've cultivated this heartistic relationship with True Mother where I love her and I want to support her, then I have to look at myself and question and challenge myself. Am I really living up to be that kind of daughter for True Mother? And when I look at what she's saying and what she's asking. And the other thing I want to share is I heard from a few sources that, it is true. Mother was saying, right? Witness, witness, witness is the only thing we should be doing. You should be doing that if you're awake or you're asleep. That's what's been coming across from Mother right now. And I heard that she also, the previous sub-regional directors of Korea, she would have them be randomly called while they're in Korea and say, what's this person doing right now? Kind of testing, right? Did they get the message? Are they witnessing day or night? Which is the first time I heard something to that level of like specificity and kind of real accountability on what she was asking for, which shakes me up a little bit and says, okay, what am I doing? If Mother randomly called me and was like, Kayla, what are you doing right now? I would say I'm eating banchan at 9 o'clock at night because I was craving it, I'm also getting ready for the new wave call, so that maybe that can like even out that situation. I say that with a joke, but the reality is true, right? I have to look at myself and ask myself in every day, what am I doing? What could I respond to True Mother with? What could I respond to Heavenly Parent with? And this is not like a situation where you have to say, oh, I didn't go out witnessing today, so I'm a bad member, or blah, blah, blah. That's not the spirit here at all. But it is about like generating this like artistic consciousness of being intentional and responding to what Mother's asking of us. So how intentional are we being today? Did I reach out to somebody today? Did I talk to somebody today? Did I channel, Mother's love and Mother's heart today in some way, shape, or form? Did I spend enough time in prayer? If I have a Chunchuman, did I pray the Chunchuman? These kinds of things, we want to start building these habits so it's no longer like I failed at this, but this has become a part of my natural life. And the video I want to show you, the first one, is Mother speaking to the 124 couples, their 60th anniversary. Some of you may have seen it in IP's TV, but I want to show it because these are 70 to 80-year-olds, and she's saying the same thing to them. These people are on their way to the eternal life, right? Realistically, but she's saying the exact same thing to them. So we'll watch a little bit of it. Let me get rid of my cacao because it keeps popping up.
그러한 또 하늘 부모님을 모실 수 있는 천원궁 천일 성전을 봉헌한 자리에 있었던 여러분들은 참 자랑스러운 124가정이다. 그렇지? 네. 그러면은 죽기 전에 책임해야 돼. 국가복귀. 하늘 부모님이 마음대로 역사하실 수 있는 참 부모로 말미암아 축복받은 여러분이기 때문에 책임을 해야 돼. 하늘 부모님을 모시는 나라가 없어. 이 민족이 독생녀를 탄생시키기 위한 선민으로서 하늘이 길러 나왔는데 하늘 앞에 책임해야 되잖아. 자기의 존재 가치를 모르는 백성들이 돼서 되겠나? 여러분이 지상에 있는 동안, 참 어머니가 지상에 있는 동안이 가장 귀중한 시간이야. 응? 그걸 놓치지 말라고. 한 사람이라도 하늘 부모님 앞에 자랑스러운 아들, 딸로서 가야 되잖아. 하늘 부모님, 참 부모님의 환경권을 만들어 드려야 되는 것이 축복 가정들의 책임이다. 그렇게 할 거죠? 네, 고마워. 그리 건강하게 지금까지 살아줘서. 이제 책임하자. 한 발짝 걸을 수 있을 때까지. 알겠어?
First of all, I noticed maybe like a hoarseness in Mother's voice, maybe a little bit sick, something like that. But I also notice how casual and comfortable she is speaking to that group because they're just a few years younger than her. But the other thing that brings up for me is, I think as we're discovering, right, mother has not always been really understood, particularly by the Korean members of our movement, especially the elder members of our movement who grew up with father really leading the way. And she has been sharing little by little that the Korean members have not easily received this idea of the only begotten daughter and mother's central role at this time in the providence. And so I also have to think when she's sitting in that room, she's talking to the senior elder members of our movement in Korea who maybe have been on a journey, right? And even maybe mother feeling like even these people may not completely understand my heart. But even still with all that, she's still saying what she needs to say. She's saying the time that you're on earth with me right now is the most important. Don't miss this opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity. As long as you can take one step, then you can fulfill your responsibility. And it's encouraging for me because, of course, when I talk with people and when I reach out to people, there's always the feeling of like, am I going to be misunderstood? Am I going to be misjudged? But I look at mother's model that no matter where she is, no matter who she's talking to, she speaks about who she is and the time we're living in. So much so that there's this testimony where mother was meeting with a bunch of media representatives in Korea. And one of the first things she said, maybe some of you have heard, is, do you know who I am? I'm the only begotten daughter. Very like straightforward. And so when she says to us, you know, the kind of education we're supposed to be teaching is about, you know, the true principles of creation, who Heavenly Parent is, Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father, how that manifests, what that looks like in the family, and also the truth about the time we're living in and our true parents. So she models for us how to do that. And I'm going to read a speech from her in a second, but I want to show one more video, which was from, I think, in June, but it just reiterates, I think, Mother's seriousness about what she's asking us to do in this time.
Celebration 3 and 4. True Mother bestowed precious words for the completion of heaven's providence for a heavenly unified Korea.
언제 이 나라가 하늘의 축복을 받을 수 있는 선민이 될 거야. 결론은 단 한 가지야. 다시 너희들이 하늘 앞에 얼굴을 둘 수 있는 것은 전도야. 금년 6개월 안에 기적을 만들어내야 돼, 너희들이. 너희들이 축복 가정으로서 이 시대를 살고 있는 이 현실을 놓고 볼 때 내가 지상에 있는 동안이야. 내가 지상에 있는 동안. 내가 영계에 가도 이 뜻은 커나가. 그러나 내가 있는 동안이 중요한 거야. 왜냐? 하늘 부모님이 함께 하시는 기간이니까. 하늘 부모님이 함께 하시는 이 황금기니까. 그것은 내가 살아있는 동안이야. 지상에 있는 동안이야. 나는 매일 하늘 앞에 너희들이 승전고를 보고해드리고 싶다고 얘기했어. 지금까지의 여러분의 태도 가지고는 안 돼. 24시간 뜬 눈으로 행동을 해야만 한다. 내가 그랬어. 여러 번 죽을 고비를 넘기면서 그래도 내가 그랬어. 내가 그렇게 나왔어. 이제 천왕궁을 봉헌하고 승리적인 입국식을 봉헌해야 될 2025년 국가복귀가 됐다 하는 승리적 보고를 하늘 앞에 할 수 있도록 어떻게 해야 되겠나? 내가 이번만큼은 간절히 믿고 싶어. 정말 간절히. 마지막에 여러분이 하늘 앞에 효자, 효녀, 충신의 도리를 다했다 하는 점수를 받을 수 있는 기간인 것을 알아야만 한다. 알겠지?
네.
So a few things come up for me when I watch that. And first, I think it's so different to watch Mother speaking live versus reading her words, because you can pay attention to when she slows down and when she's reiterating a point very slowly, and when the tears are welling up in her eyes, right? And this last portion here, she's saying, I truly, desperately want to believe this time with all my heart and soul. Do you understand? I truly, desperately want to believe this time with all my heart and soul. So what does that mean? Why is she saying that? She's saying that in the context of talking about 2025, which is the true entrance ceremony to the Chunwan Gung, which we're supposed to open this year fully in May. But so many things contributed to not being able to fully open that building, including even some of our own movement not being in support of the launching of this building, and many other practical things that got in the way. But I feel like when I hear this and I see this, I feel like Mother wants to let go of that, let go of the disappointment in our own members in fulfilling our responsibility. She wants to let that go and truly believe that we can fulfill our responsibility by 2025. And it's like a sadness from Mother. I truly, desperately want to believe this time. I want to believe this time. Yeah, it's like painful to hear that from True Mother, right? She wants to trust us. Maybe there's a part of her that worries she can't, or we've failed in the past, but she wants to trust us. She wants to believe in us and be able to share our great victory with heaven. And there's a few other things that she's been saying over and over again. Another portion where she slows down that she talked about in the earlier speech too is the time that we're living in right now, where Mothers on Earth is most important. And she said it in the speech we watched last month, which is that this is where Heavenly Parent lives with us together. Hamke, she says, live with us together. And she says this over and over again. So when Mother repeats phrases like that, I try to pay attention. Like, why is she saying that over and over again? And I think it's something for all of us to pray over and to digest a little bit. Why is that true? I think another important thing to keep in mind as you watch these speeches and read these words from Mother's not doing this to lift herself up. That's not the energy that comes across from her at all. In some ways, when I watch her, there's a little bit of discomfort in having to be so firm and so stern and so clear, but she musters up the courage to do it because it's not her general nature, right? Mother's nature is not this kind of like harsh leader, but she's having to awaken that in herself right now because we're not responding, we're not getting it. I was reading the anthology. I've been finishing again the anthology recently, and I'm realizing everything she said 10 years ago is the same as she's saying now. And we didn't understand this whole time. And how frustrating that must be, how patient True Mother has been with us because we still haven't got it. And still many of us haven't got it. I had a conversation earlier today with one of my women's fed leaders where I was talking about Mother being the greatest peacemaker. And she said something like, well, you can't say that about Mother. You can't say that individually about Mother without saying that it was also True Father who led the way. And that's no problem, right? We honor true parents, but like how much even of our own movement have we not understood Mother's significance, always putting her in the background of Father. So it's like, Mother has to speak up for herself because nobody else has up until this point. And you can tell if you really think and pray about it, it's not comfortable for her. She would rather not have to do this, but because we haven't figured that out ourselves, she has to do it for herself. for Heavenly Parent. The last thing I want to read is Mother's most recent speech. And I don't know how aware this group is about the program that happened in Cambodia recently. The Cambodian government, which I think most of us know, our movement has worked very closely with. Hun Sen is the prime minister, and we have a close relationship with him. They held their elections recently, and the way they hold their elections is not the same as the US, where we have people that we vote for. You vote for the party. Now, the truth is, and I want to be transparent because I think that's important, is that Cambodia professes itself as a democracy, but it's not a true democracy because it basically outlawed the opposition party from this voting process. So like in the UN's eyes, Cambodia is not looked upon favorably because of that kind of situation. But Cambodia, in an attempt to kind of win the favor of how Cambodia is developing, invited witnessers of the election process to show that it was a true election and people had choice and things like that. And our movement brought, I think, at least half of those people. So we brought, I know from America, we brought Congressman Burton and his wife, Mrs. Burton, and many other delegates from around the world who participated. And so in conjunction with that, we held an ILC with the government leaders in Cambodia, and Mother recorded a message specifically for the Cambodian government, which is kind of a big deal, right? It's a big deal that here's Mother being able to speak to all the people who are in these political positions in this nation. And it's interesting to see what she talks about. I'm not going to be able to read the whole speech, but I can put the link in the chat, but I just want to kind of highlight a few sections so you get a sense. I'm paying attention to this because I'm thinking, what do I tell people? What do I teach people? And I can look at what Mother's saying because she's basically giving us a very clear model. Okay, so she's talking about the Asia Pacific Union, just to give you context. And she says, she's talking about the importance of Korea here. And she says, unity, however, cannot be attained based on a human-centric paradigm. Unity and world peace can only be achieved by acknowledging and attending the creator and owner of this universe as our parent. In the present world, there is both democracy and communism, and we see many issues arising due to people not knowing heaven's providence and due to nations pursuing only their own national interests. And I think this is interesting because Mother's talking to a political audience, right? But she's never shying away from God being the center of this. A lot of times, you know, I can testify to being in UPF and the feeling from Women's Federation too, that there's a fear of like talking about God and Heavenly Parent and like, oh, we're not allowed to do that. But like, here's Mother doing it with no fear, making it very clear. She says, I can say this clearly. The civilization that dominated the Western world is now facing many problems such that it can no longer advance. There is a path for humanity to move toward a singular objective through the Asian continent, which serves as the bedrock of Asia's spiritual civilization. I want to clearly state that the Creator is the parent of humanity. And then she goes on to talk about how God made Adam and Eve, and because of their fall, there's been a continual cycle of conflict and war. So what should we do to respond to that? She says we must know the dream of the Creator, our Heavenly Parent, and choose the path of becoming one with our Creator. The Creator wished to live with human beings based on the first human ancestors perfecting their love in the heavenly kingdom on earth. 6,000 years passed before a man and woman who had achieved such perfection of love could emerge from among humankind. And then who do you think she talks about? She talks about Jesus and how people couldn't understand him. And then she talks about the only begotten daughter who was born. And then at the very end, she says the truth must certainly be revealed. I pray that we can open the era of Asia Pacific civilization together with the true parents to establish the kingdom of God and the world of peace that heaven desires. May you all become righteous people who can receive heaven's blessings and be commended as proud children of heaven. So I'll put this in the chat because there's a lot more to dig into, and I encourage everybody to read it on your own. But this is kind of like the clearest example of, I think, what Mother's expecting us to teach about, to talk about, to not be afraid to share about with people. Because here she is talking in front of all these political leaders of the Cambodian government. And she's not being shy. She's not being afraid of this kind of content. So a few things pop up for me, maybe other things pop up for you. But she's very clearly talking about Heavenly Parent being the creator of the world. And the only way to solve the problems is to unite and become one with Heavenly Parent. And then she's talking about true parents. She's talking about Jesus, and she's talking about true mother. She's making those, that relationship very clear. The only begotten Son from Jesus and the only begotten daughter from mother. So it's like as clear as it could be. So there's no question, everybody, when we think about what we should teach. And the interesting thing is, you know, I think some of us have heard mothers saying we need to teach, there's new content we should teach, or we should kind of be more clear about what we're teaching in terms of Heavenly Parent and true parents. And there's all these questions of like, oh, well, what is that? And what should we teach? And blah, 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 blah. But like, all you need is these words. It's really clear. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You don't need to be like, is this section correct from the DP? Is this? Don't worry about that stuff. Just keep it simple. If people can get the simple principles, then we've done our job, and God can do the rest to work through that. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about before I open it up just for some reflection and some comments, is this memo that came out. I had it up, I'm sorry. Okay. So I think most of us have heard we are currently in an international 40-day condition. And the purpose of this condition we can go over. Maybe I'll go over the memo real quick so that everybody's kind of up to date on it in case you missed it. Because I know these international memos are not the most exciting to read. This is how every memo where it looks like, in case you've never seen an international memo. It's very formal. Okay, so True Mother has recently emphasized the importance of loving God, loving humankind, and loving one's country. Mother said we must demonstrate sincerity, truly love this country, and really have people see for themselves that we are working with deep love for heaven. She emphasized that each person should witness. We must witness whether we are awake or asleep. Mother also stated all members must return to the heart we had in the early days. While guiding our efforts in witnessing, I want to report your daily results to Heavenly Parent. So in response to that, to uphold True Mother's earnest heart and call for witnessing, International Headquarters is preparing for a special 40-day witnessing activity and devotional period to mark the 11th anniversary of True Father's Holy Ascension. During this 40-day period, we will convey True Parent's heart of true love to all those who have been previously connected to our movement, including second and third generation members, so that they may begin anew within True Parent's embrace. It is requested that all regional organizations and providential organizations participate actively in this witnessing and devotional period. Please refer to the following guidelines. You can read through these purposes. I can send you the link, but I want to just go over this, the details of activities and devotions. Some examples are visiting members' homes and providing counseling, witnessing to our contacts and bringing inactive members to reconnect, offering devotions for witnessing, such as night prayer, hunduke, vows, education and workshops on True Parents Life courses on the church level, and the special donation for the 11th anniversary of True Father's Holy Ascension. So this has already been kicked off a week and a half ago. And of course, you can join at any time. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've seen a lot of these memos come and go, a lot of these conditions come and go, and like, there's no landing pad in my life for those conditions. They're just, the channel has not been opened for it to be relevant. or meaningful or make sense. And I want to make the space for that amongst us. And the reason why I want to make space for that is I want to challenge us to grow up in our faith. So yes, maybe international memos are not your thing, or they're too formal, or they don't, come across to your heart. I don't know, whatever your reaction is, that's fine. I get it. It's there. But I want to push us to like go the next step in our level of faith and trusting in God and how God is working through our true parents as well. And be able to look at this, and the response should be, I should participate in this. We should get to that point where there's not a question where it's like, oh, is that really for me? I don't know. We got to get past that point in our life, because we're all there is. I'm sorry to say, if we don't make that breakthrough, if this circle of women who are here because you love Mother and you're on this journey to figure out how to respond as a filial daughter, if we can't figure that out, then who can, right? Who can be that next generation to inherit this kind of heart from Mother? So I want to encourage you to look at this, to think about it, to be sincere about it, and make a condition and an offering that makes sense for you in this 40-day period. For me, I have an event that I'm planning for at the end of August. It's a Bridge of Peace program that I'm hosting in DMV, and it's a mess to plan, and it's not going perfectly, and that's okay. I'm still pushing through it, and I'm offering my prayers and my devotion, and I'm giving out flyers and inviting people to it, even strangers. I'm doing the work, right? So I've given myself a goal to reach, and I'm putting my effort into that goal. And so if you haven't already taken the time to do that for yourself, to think, okay, Mother approved this condition, our true Mother approved this condition. So shouldn't our response be like, okay, what am I going to do to respond to true Mother? And is this going to be another opportunity for me to just sit back and see what happens? Or is this going to be an opportunity for me to push myself and respond from the sincere place in my heart, not the guilty place in your heart? Let's make sure that's clear. Not the, I must do this to be a good member. I don't want, none of that belongs here. Okay. If you're not there yet, just do some prayer, do whatever you could do, like go on a walk every day, whatever condition you can make that's real for you, make that real. But I do want to encourage us to push it just to the next level. If you're comfortable with whatever you've come up with, you could probably go 1 inch further. You know what I mean? Because you have a little more space to grow, and it's out of a filial heart. It's not out of a guilty heart, not out of a pressuring heart, but because Mother is my true Mother, and I want to show up for her in this time. As a woman, as a daughter, I want to show up in this time. So in conjunction with that, I will also put this in the chat. I think some of you are not Women's Fed leaders. This is a letter that I sent out to all of our Women's Fed leaders asking for their participation in this 40-day period. Read it on your own, it's too long. But there's also a link in there that allows you to fill out a form to show your commitment, what you want to commit to during this time. And I want to encourage you to fill out that form, or if you have some other channel to make that kind of report, because it's scary to do that, but it's good to do that, because reporting is part of our spiritual practice, right? You have to proclaim it to heaven. You have to put it out there. If you never make it official, how can heaven show up in that process? You have to offer it. You have to report it. So I encourage you to make that kind of report commitment for, I will read Mother's memoir over these 40 days, or I will pray at the Chuncheon, however often you could make it there, or I will do witnessing activities, or I will plan a program at this day and work to do outreach for that. Whatever you can handle that's in your life, I want to encourage you to make that commitment. Okay, I'm going to pause here because that was a lot of content, and there's a few announcements I want to make at the end of this, but I want to open it up. I know that this is a slightly different space than our last time, and I'm counting on that. I'm counting that many of our sisters here have been doing the internal work, facing the fears and processing some of the stuff that was coming up from our last call. And I'm hoping what this space becomes is a space to support our activation, to support one another and showing up in these sincere ways to, as like filial daughters to our true mother. So yeah, I want to open it up just for your general reflections on any of the stuff that I read, any of the things that I talked about, but also if there's something coming up for you in terms of how you would like to make a commitment during this 40-day period, then we think we would love to hear from everybody as well. So I'll pause here, and whoever's feeling brave, and I encourage everyone to feel brave. I encourage you to turn on your video at this point, because I can talk to a bunch of blank screens and be confident in who I am, but it's another thing for our sisters to do that. So if you can, if you're lying in bed, it's just sisters here. If you're eating your panchan, it's just sisters here. Let's show up for each other as we share sincerely with one another. So who's feeling brave to share their reflection or something that's coming up for them?
I can start, Kaylee.
Thanks, Kathy, for being brave.
Well, every day I actually pray for courage, for being brave, and it's because since our last call, I did express that I feel most of us are hesitant because we're scared of rejection, we're scared of what people think, and that's been, a common theme because of our movement and who we are. Unfortunately, it's become negative to the rest of the world, but those videos, every time you show them, it really pulls on my heartstrings, because you can really sense mother's desperation. Sometimes I feel, wow, she doesn't mention True Father ever. So I catch myself still comparing, and I catch myself still not doubting, but like, well, I mean, how could you forget about True Father? But at the same time, it's not about True Father right now. True Father is doing what he can in the spirit world. We have our true mother. She is still Messiah. And I feel like I need to remember to catch myself when I start doing those things, because that's what she's exactly fighting against, is the comparison. That there is no comparison. There is just a battle between a spiritual battle, and mother says now is the time before both of them are gone. So I do feel her hesitancy, her desperation. Realistically, since our last call, I'm thinking about how can I start witnessing? And I know it's got to be more than just the door-to-door, the parking lot flyer giveaways, and I'm like hesitant because I just got back from visiting family in Canada. I've been home for almost a week now, and I still haven't unpacked my luggage because I just can't find the time between a baby and the kids. And I'm like, how can I do something else on top of that? And but I know I don't know, but I know that if I am serious enough, I will find a way. And I think this 40-day condition, I have heard of it, and it's good to be put in my place again. And this is a good reminder to answer the call just by starting. Visit my Cheongshimwon. I haven't even done that yet. And so these little things, I think is a good start to have, the braveness that I'm praying for. So maybe tonight's call is an answer to my prayers. So it's my reflection tonight.
Wow. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, she deserves a round of applause for that. Thank you for your courage and also your honesty about the stuff that's coming up, and that's real, and we have to make a space for it. That's the only way we can grow and really hear what God wants to correct about what we're feeling and heal about what we're feeling. Dang, I think you went first last time, or maybe second, but thank you, Kathy. Awesome. Who else would like to share? Yeah, Sancha.
Great. Thanks, Kaylee, for organizing this. I feel really grateful. Yeah, I think if I'm being totally honest, and I don't know if anyone else feels that way, or this way, but sometimes it feels easier to talk about true mother to people that aren't in the church. Where I struggle the most is actually talking to like other second gen that are negative. And I think even in looking at that, I can see like there's actually a lot of anger that I have towards, I guess, yeah, towards like, I don't know what it is exactly, but almost yeah, I'm like trying to like understand my own heart as I'm sharing this. I'm trying not to come off as judgmental too, so there's all of that there. Um but yeah, maybe a feeling of not quite understanding why so many second gen who I feel have such a high caliber of spirituality have like chosen to swing 1,000% in this like external world to this other area where I have never put stock in. Even as I say that, I know that I've spent 10 years in the corporate world. But even then, I felt like I talked about who I was to people. I talked about who true parents were. Um, I I talked about how I wanted to find my spouse to people. So like, I don't know, I think there's a feeling there of like, how do I love those second gen that I feel both betrayed by, but both miss, like miss very deeply, you know? Yeah, so even it's interesting, I was talking to another second gen maybe a couple days ago, and we were just talking about sports fest that's happening in this area. And I was like, oh, you know what? There's actually so many second gen in this area that don't participate in church, don't come around, and don't even like care to, but they might come to sports fest. You know, they might, and it's not even to like return. It's not even about that, but they just might come and see the community again or something. So I guess there's like in my heart wanting to invite certain people that I know that are in the East Coast area that I know are pretty distant, you know, hey, do you want to come to Sports Fest with me for one day over the weekend? Yeah, and I think I don't know if that's like a part of me, my perfection self is like, that's not witnessing, Sancha. Like, what are you talking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got a standard for things. I'm a perfectionist, but when I ask my heart, like I know it is on some level, right? Like wanting them to feel like loved and welcomed. And I feel like that is true mother's heart and desire. So yeah, ironically, like 2 days ago with this other sister, we made a goal. I was like, okay, I'm gonna call this person and invite her. You're gonna call this person, okay? We're gonna meet there. So that is something that was just like organically happening. But yeah, anyway, that's what was on my heart to share. And I think Kathy's point about going to the Chuncheon one that's near you is a good task too. I'm lucky enough to have two, Clifton and Belvedere. So, and I haven't gone yet. So that's also on my mind to go. That's it.
Thank you, Sancha. Yeah, thank you for your authenticity. And I do want to like surround your heart's answer that it's literally listed in the condition that reaching out to those who are distant is a big priority for Mother. There's been three things she's talked about. She's talked about witnessing, national restoration, and the third point that pops up often enough to mention is reaching the lost second generation, reaching them. It's like really on Mother's heart. So spot on. And I love that idea. I love using Sports Fest for that. That's awesome. Thank you, Sancha. I know there's a few more who can feel brave before I have to call on a few people.
I can go next.
I knew it would be you, Razia.
um, It's funny. I've been looking forward to this call. I just saw Monday and I hopped on the call on Monday when you first announced it and it wasn't there. And then I hopped on like Monday afterwards and it wasn't there. I've been waiting for 3 Mondays for this call to happen. I think my heart's been really yearning for, yeah, this space to really understand more deeply what Mother's calling us to. And the things that reached my heart from what you were saying and sharing and pointing out from Mother's words was this, like, but you can give an inch more, because we really are. You were talking about this we're the circle of women who are, I don't know, we're the people that are gonna, that Mother's talking to. We're the people that are gonna make this happen. We're the people, right? Like, we're here, we're hearing Mother's heart, we're understanding something that most of the world doesn't understand, let alone, within our movement, there's gaps of understanding. And so, yeah, that was on my heart. Okay, so your Facebook message, I was so grateful. I talked to my husband, like I saw it and I was like, oh shoot, that's tomorrow. What are we gonna do? And I don't know, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. I have to come up with a really amazing condition for this 40 days. And then what ended up happening is like, well, I have no idea. So I'll do 7 vows until I come up with something. So I'm doing 7 vows, so I can definitely do more. Ironically, I don't know, ironically, but maybe perfectly, my sister is coming to visit and she left our movement a while ago. And I realized that a few days ago, this is falling within this 40 days before Father's Ascension. Why is it falling? Like she's been going back and forth about the days for this trip so many times, but finally it was set and it's now. And yeah, I really want to pray about what Mother's heart is towards my sister and how I can share it in a way that she can receive it. Yeah, so that's been on my heart, because I know that there's room there for something, and then today, interestingly, so I'm I witnessed with CARP here in the Chicago area, and we went witnessing, and we were looking for the person. There's like no people on campus. It's summer, and there was like, we could found 3 people. Those are the people we talked to, but there was this one Christian girl, her name's Sonia, and she was sharing so confidently about her faith. It was so beautiful. And we were trying to, share about the principle with her in our very traditional way. And so we handed her the outline of the introduction and she read it and she was like, these are the things that I quite agree with. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And then so she said, no, I don't want to study with you guys. And so we left, but my heart was just beating like, gosh, like God loves this girl. There's something I need to give her that I didn't yet. And on one of your earlier calls last year or whenever, we read this speech where Mother says, are you afraid of the Christians? Don't be afraid of the Christians. Just ask them, just tell them who I am. Or anyways, sometimes she says like, you should ask people, what is Jesus's hope? And so I've been using that. I'm like, it hasn't worked yet, but so I'm really grateful for so that's what I went back. So I went back, I just felt this calling in my heart and I went back and I talked to her and I was like, what do you think Jesus's hope is? And I've asked this for a couple of people and they never, they say things. But I was like, I really think that Jesus wanted to get married. Don't you think that maybe? And she was like, well, maybe, but I don't need to think about that right now in my life. Anyway, she had some, but I walked away. She still didn't want to read. But I walked away with like kind of tears in my heart and this longing for like, Mother, how do I reach out to your children? Because I'm not, there's something more. So I was just really grateful for the way that you were reading, like the lens that you're reading these speeches through, and this speech from Cambodia that she gave. I really want to study it and I want my CARP group here to study it. And I really think it's true. It's a good way. Somehow, one of these days, I'm going to give a testimony on one of these calls. It worked, guys, it worked. What Mother told me to say worked. Anyway, so that's what's going through my heart. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosia. And it's funny because that speech, and when we read it, the "Are you afraid of Christians?" I remember you had this like such a sincere reaction, and you've mentioned it once before. I remember feeling like this is Rosia's message. This is for her. And you bring it up again. It's, yeah, you're gonna claim that victory. I totally know it. Yeah, I think the other thing that comes up for me when I hear that is like the feeling, Kathy was mentioning it too, like the fear that comes up for us in saying what we know is on our heart because we're afraid it won't be received. I feel like that's the biggest thing for us to overcome is it's the fear of rejection, but like what are we afraid of? You know, that's what Mother says over and over again is, why are you afraid of that? Are you afraid because that takes value away from what you know to be true and meaningful? And I feel like that's the biggest battle for us to overcome, especially as women. We always have that doubt, that like shame that always kind of like is there amongst our other feelings. Yeah, and I think I have to overcome it. I think we have to overcome it like Mother does. Like Mother doesn't have that sense of fear or shame or guilt when she says what she says. It's a purity. And I've sat next to like high level delegates from the United States when Mother is like, I'm the only begotten daughter and you need to unite with me. And nobody has a reaction to it. And I really think it's because, one, they can feel her sincerity, but also her confidence comes from such a genuine place. It's not a cockiness, it's not an arrogance, it's just, this is what it is. And they don't, you know, all these men, all these like political men with a lot of power in their life don't have that reaction because she's like broken through in something that we haven't yet. So that's not just for you, Rosia, that's for me too in my own reflection. But yeah, thank you. Maybe we can get one or two more.
Hi, Kaylee.
Hi, Sarah, nice to
Hey,
meet you.
nice to meet you. I'm like from afar. I'm in Australia. I've got my little ones with me in the garden, and this one's a bit sad. But
Aw.
um, so I'm from afar, as I said, but and I haven't met you before or had a call with you, but I feel like really connected with you through all the work you've been sharing, especially like yeah, that's you, Celeste and Mama. um, your PM radio. I feel like I know a lot of you sisters as well through that, although I haven't really been able to talk to a lot of you, but I do know a bunch of you as well. I still stay connected. And yeah, so I guess I just wanted to share how. So I'm in Melbourne in Australia, and recently there was a young adults retreat that was run here, which they don't happen too often, maybe once or twice a year, but we haven't been able to go to one because it's normally hard with a family, but yeah, they catered this one to families. So we went, and one of the organizers asked if I could share a testimony there, and he gave me a few topics, and one of them was about your parents. And so I chose that one because I felt, although there's always a feeling of how do I testify to my second gen brothers and sisters about True Mother, I just couldn't not use that opportunity. And so I shared about Mother, and her, her ability to heal and bring grace and love into our hurting hearts, and just, obviously there's a lot of like negativity, I guess, or like confusion around Mother's role among our second gen. And I yeah, I guess I just felt like I just had to give my, yeah, try my best to convey something through that, the opportunity. And then it was like a sort of like a retreat where it was about looking at our roots, but also looking at what do we want in our community. So it was like 2 days of like content about our roots and then content about our what do we want to build in our communities. And yeah, some people were sharing, and like even one of my closest second gen friends who's a mum as well, who was sharing in one of the, actually like we were in our groups and my husband was in the group with her, so he told me later, but was like saying how she was sharing that she's like not really religious, and I wasn't really sure where she's been standing for a while. Like we connect a lot as on mum things, but not necessarily on spiritual things. And just hearing that kind of hurt, like kind of felt like, oh, like there's a feeling of like yeah, it's hard to know like how to connect if there's not like something on a spiritual level that we can connect on, of course, beyond being friends and being mums. But I guess like it was weird because like last night I had a dream, and I don't really have dreams I remember properly most of the time, and definitely not about like meaningful things. But I guess it like in my dream I was just facing like this particular friend of mine and others, although I can't remember who they were, but were sort of like being negative about mother, and I just felt like I felt thanks for bearing with me, everyone. I felt like just this real sadness that that's just the reality, I guess, that people feel this way. And I think that it's understandable. Like most of us, I think like sharing about this stuff at the workshop, like I had a few people come up and comment later and was like, oh, I've never even thought of True Mother in that way. Like it's never even occurred to me. I think just there's very little people that actually are like trying or making any sort of effort to connect with mother. So yeah, so I think it was like, anyway, I guess just to like get to the end, I wanted, one of the things that came out from this retreat as well was how like in that community discussions about like what people can do in their local communities a bit more to build community around faith focus, not just, I guess the running joke was that like we always get together for barbecues, but like what else, you know, beyond that. And so yeah, like Micah and I, my husband, we've thought about doing, yeah, just hosting like a Hundake group once a month as a starting point, because it seemed like there was some receptivity among some community, and there was another community in different, this is like an Australia-wide group that was there. So there were people from interstate, and some other people had some success with doing Hundake groups, and it just kind of brought that inspiration to us as well. And I just feel like, I guess during this 40 days, like it's kind of difficult to get around to starting something, but I feel like that's what I need to start during this time and keep it like maybe get people that are local who I know would be interested, but I also want to like still, yeah, I guess like invite people that are sort of maybe borderline, like whether they're in or out, you know, or like where their faith is, but just to feel like this is a space where you're invited and like you're welcome here and you're loved and you're accepted here, and yeah, that sort of thing. So yeah, so thanks for listening, everyone, and nice to meet you all on a call. I did listen back to your first call, so I kind of caught up on everything. Yeah, and I just really am grateful to connect properly for the first time. Kaylee, thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. What a pleasure to meet you and hear from you. And I hope you know, like, as you're dealing with your kids, there's lots of moms in this room who are like giggling and laughing and totally know what that's like. And kids are always welcome to women's calls, okay? Don't ever feel worried about that. But there's also some nice comments in the chat. I think a lot of people relating with what you're saying. And those small steps are a perfect example of responding to what Mother's asking us to do. Really meaningful. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we've hit the 1 hour mark. I don't want to go 2 hours like last time. But that was like a record. But I do just want to make the space. I feel like there's maybe one more person who wants to challenge themselves to share in this group setting. No pressure, but just my sense. Yeah, Yunji, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I'm sorry if anybody else wanted to share, but didn't raise their hand before me. But thank you. Well, I guess just focusing on what can we each of us do, and in the situation that we're in. Like, I didn't commit to the 40-day because right now I'm literally on my due date right now, so I'm that can give birth any day right now. But I did want to mention, I was thinking about, it was interesting that the Gaudible that, I don't know if everyone here listens to Gaudible regularly, but the one this morning did touch upon something I thought was very relevant to mothers. I'm not going to read all of it, but I just thought it was very interesting, even though it's in the context of like the CARP in Korea back in the 90s. But just when they were, it felt like it was being spoken to, even to relevant to now, of just, from now on, mothers have to properly educate their children. The Israelite mothers who entered in the land of Canaan, as well as their sons and daughters, were influenced by the people who were already there. Unable to preserve their own religious traditions, they failed to establish the kingdom in Israel. Going on, it's like after mothers and their children become one, how do they establish the kingdom of Israel? That is their mission. So I'm just thinking about it, it's like, yeah, maybe I feel like, especially with a lot of second gens, us, that we're not very well educated with principle. I mean, I think it varies from family to family, and how much each of us might have taken our own initiative to study on our own, or how well we received it. But I do kind of get a sense from a lot of I remember meeting a sister from Korea who didn't even know what the blessing was. Like, all she was told was you obey your parents, you go to the blessing. So that was kind of a big a wake-up call to me, is like that, yeah, we're not really being taught very well. So I kind of relating to this passage. I if you haven't read it, I think this Gaudible is really interesting that they talked about that. So so we must go the opposite way. Mothers, sons, and daughters must unite in establishing the heavenly kingdom. Mothers have to educate their children so that they can have an influence on their university communities. Hence, after women of the world become second selves of true mother, they must turn their children around 180 degrees, even if they have to hold on to them and not let them go. So I'll stop there, but I just thought that was really telling of, of what our responsibility as moms regarding with children. It was very specific on our role in educating children, and even in the secular world talks about the impact of mothers on children in their early development in the first 5 years. So that this is probably obviously not short term, not reaching to 2025, but long term, if that's something that we can do, it's not taking for granted. It's that looking after little ones may not feel like we're accomplishing anything big, but long term, if we are really well educating our children, internally and externally, there could be a very long-term impact on that. So I thought I wanted to share that point. I thought that was, and sorry if my mind is a little bit all over the place. I'm this is like the the time when you're just like, I'm so done being pregnant right now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But yeah, because when I listening to True Mother, and yeah, I really feel so sad for her that we still, even some of our eldest members are not really getting her. And I can hear it in her voice too. I think because I didn't grow up in Korea, but I mean my mom's Korean, so I mean I feel like what I get why it's such a struggle is like not an expert in Korean culture, but I know like women, I mean, it is a very male centric culture, and that women have always been kind of more in the background. And it's really hard to shake that culture, that mindset, that women were not really in the forefront. But I feel like that's kind of also misunderstood as well. I feel like women, even Korean women, had very important roles where in some sense had some respect or value, but it was much more of like in the background. Like they managed the home. They could even have influence on the husband, to, even if the husband is like more of a public figure, they can have an influence. So they're much more of like in the background, and maybe that might be why it feels like for Mother, it's very like uncomfortable for her to talk about herself, because I've seen it from a Korean point of view is like it should be it should be her children, the true children that should be standing up, especially her sons that are standing up. This is our mother, this great mother of all humankind. She doesn't have that. So I think that's like where that uncomfortableness is coming from. It shouldn't actually, I mean, think of any of our moms, they shouldn't be the ones who have to talk about themselves. It should be the adult children that are stepping forward and say, this is our mother. She's sacrificed. She's done this and this and this, testifying to her. I mean, we do the same for our father too, but yeah, so I guess that's maybe where that uncomfortable feeling or that sense, that sadness in her voice is coming from. Yeah, she shouldn't have had to do this. She shouldn't have to talk about promote herself. So saying that, and then yeah, how understanding her value, I can see that kind of that rippling effect on in women in general in the world, that women or womanhood, or motherhood, still yet to really be fully valued. I'm learning it as I'm going. I'm realizing very quickly that my first one's only not even 3 yet. We really don't, our society doesn't really understand the true value of motherhood or womanhood.
Yeah.
So it's but I think that there are some inklings of people are exploring that, and that's something we should try to really kind of really laser focus and hone down and understand, like what it means, what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a mom. That there's a value in there that's like so great. I like that thing, that meme that was kind of floating around. It was not based off of one person's quote, but it's like you give a woman something and she'll multiply it. If you give her a house, she'll make you a home. You give her sperm, she will give you a baby. I feel like that kind of touches a little bit upon like the great value of women. It's like we're receivers. We can endure and digest, and then we can build on it and give something that's even of greater value back to the world. I feel like with Mother, we can kind of see that she speaks so little. Like that's what I love about your TM radios. Like you really highlighted how she is really direct to the point. She says very little, but the meaning and the amount of stuff that's in her words is immense. Like, so she's giving us so much more. I mean, if we have how many hours, if we've ever sat in Father's speeches, like how he would go on for hours and hours, and it's a lot of content, and she gives like a fraction of that, but yet it feels like as much as True Father's speech. So I hope those points I hope those are good, helpful sharing. Little things that we can do. I mean, being on the verge of giving birth and then having really small
You need to
children.
give birth, Angie. You need to give birth.
Yeah,
Anything
yeah.
else.
But thank goodness we're in a time with social media. We
Right.
can still meet. I mean, I just started like a little Facebook group where we just share social media content that we find very inspiring. And I just thought that's a little something that we can do. We can connect with people online. So thank goodness we live in this age of social media. So yeah, thanks for letting me speak for this much amount of time. Thanks.
This lady deserves a round of applause. I feel like being so near to birth, she's channeling some like heavenly wisdom. It's like a holy space that she's in. And Yeonji, I mean, you are everything you're saying is like so the spirit of Women's Federation. So I'm just going to put that out there because she said some key phrases, right, Katerina, that was like ding, ding, ding. Yep, that's what we're trying to do. So come join the team. And speaking of which, I just want to give 2 shout outs. I hope you don't mind. But one of the things that we're trying to do in Women's Fed is that we want our funnel of education in the end is all leading to True Mother. And Katerina's in the process of creating a small group curriculum that's all about Mother of Peace memoir and really making that like deep and relatable, what it means to be a woman and your faith and all that kind of stuff. So we can look forward to that. One of the things that we're starting to do on social media, as Yeonji mentioned, is today I put out this video on our Instagram, should be on our Facebook too, but I'm starting to just like read short passages from Mother, like 2 or 3 sentences. And it takes a minute, I read it, and then I just like share why that's relevant for my life. And I want, first of all, like us, follow us, give us some love. But more importantly is I want us to move towards being more bold about our education and our platforms. So if there's anybody in this group that's interested in doing short videos like that, or even more broad videos about womanhood and the true essence of womanhood and what that looks like, then we're really looking for a team that could work together to kind of represent this voice on social media. And that's a small thing you can do also if you're in a community where you don't have others to work with and things like that. And the other thing I just want to put like a personal plug and begging is I learned recently that, Mother's asking for everybody to witness. And so our international president told us a few days ago that the way that we're measuring that in Women's Federation now is through membership, is people who become members of Women's Federation. We claim that as the way that we're counting our witnessing and our education as an NGO. So I know most of you are not members of Women's Fed, and I feel guilty to use this space to say it, but I also feel like it's important to show up as young women in this space. And Katerina, if you can put the link in the chat. I want to ask you as a favor to consider becoming a member of Women's Fed. One, to show up as the younger women generation. I want to be able to report to True Mother that the next generation of women are showing up full-hearted and also substantially. There's many different levels. So, from $50 to $1,000 a year. So you choose a level that's most appropriate for you. Of course, it also supports all of our programs, but the other side of this is that we hope to be able to launch some great educational resources that come along with membership towards the end of the year that I also hope you guys will help co-create and make space for and be able to share with your other women friends so we can educate them also about who Heavenly Parent is and who True Mother is in this sectarian or religious context, but this universal context. So please consider becoming a member, doing me a favor and showing up in this way. And I also just want to say thank you for everybody for showing up tonight, and thank you for your growth. It's like so touching, right? It's so beautiful to see the real growth and taking responsibility. And if anybody ever wants to share a testimony or a message, please send it to me, because I hope what comes out of this call in the future is your testimonies about what is coming up in your prayer. Those of you who finally visit the Chuncheon, tell us your experience, even if it's a flop, right? To be honest about the experience. or those of you who finally build up the courage to do some kind of witnessing or reaching out to the distant friends who haven't been so connected. We want to hear those stories. We want to make space to support each other, whatever way that manifests. So I'm going to stop the recording